No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele, backwoods other lawyer, doing a special election podcast. Mr. Russian, you out there?
Oh, yeah, you better believe it. Enjoying one of the best nights I've had in quite a while.
So tell me, when did you get the news?
I honestly, nobody's going to believe this, but I was actually at a rifle range with my brother this morning when my phone, which I had turned off, we had just gotten a break. They had whistled for a ceasefire, and we were about to go collect targets. And I reached in my pocket to check my phone, and I had about 50 text messages, and from 10 minutes before, and I looked at all of them. I said, "Oh my gosh!" And I looked at them all, and I looked at my brother, and I said, "Here, I want you to come look at something." And I showed it to him, and then he kind of had the same reaction I did. We both kind of looked around down the lanes at all the others that were there, and I said, "I think we better get the hell out of here." So we packed up and went and got burgers and came home and started the celebration.
I, for one, would like to congratulate you. If you'll look, AL.com has called it Biden 290, and your prediction was 289. That's pretty damn close.
Yeah, I like to say that, believe it or not, I feel like I know what I'm talking about. You know, it's and once the chips all fall, when the states all certify by the 8th, you'll see that it'll come right around to about 290 to 246, and that'll be the end of it. Now, like, I'm not going to sit here and toot my own horn and talk about how I knew what states were going to do what, because I did drop the ball on Georgia. Thankfully, I miscalculated that, and I am certainly happy that all of my friends in the urban areas of Georgia showed up and voted. That's absolutely fantastic. One thing I will get into just real quick is to let everybody know what happens next. There's a lot of jubilation right now. There's a lot of celebration. Everybody says, "Great, we've got a new president." Well, not yet. We have what's called a president-elect. This is the person who has won the election, and they've still got a few hoops to jump through before they become president. The first hoop, I'll give you guys like a timeline of it, because I think that's the best way to explain it. So, from November 10th to December 11th, the states have to certify the election results. So each state does it a little bit differently, but the week after Election Day, usually your state government will certify their election results. Okay. The key date for that is December 8th. That is the safe harbor day. Under the Electoral Count Act, that's the date by which states have to have their votes counted, have to have all their legal disputes resolved, and the governors have to create what's called a certificate of ascertainment. And they list the winner of their election and the slate of electors, which means, because every state had the electoral votes that you saw that was so important just the other night. Those are actual votes. Those are actual people that are going to cast those votes. Those are the electors of the state. A big thing that happened the last time we had a big dispute was in 2000, when George W. Bush was running against Al Gore, and Al Gore conceded the election on election night, but then came back and said, "You know what? I think we're going to recount Florida." And they went to that whole hanging Chad thing. The reason that all stopped, a lot of people have forgotten this, the reason that all stopped is not because one side won or lost. It's because it got to December 8th, and they didn't have it resolved at that point. And at that point, you've got to have it resolved, or else it just goes away. And that's what happened to Al Gore's lawsuit. It just went away. The Supreme Court ended their targeted recount in Florida because it couldn't be completed by December 8th. That's in the Constitution. It has to be. On the 14th of December, well, it's the 14th of December this year. The law in the Constitution states that it's the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December. That is when that's basically the electors meet in their respective states and cast their votes, where the Electoral College meets in each state and says, all right, we're going to cast our votes for this person. They certify all these 6 sets of votes and they send them to Washington. All right.
I want to interrupt you for a second because there were some yumpy laws that came out this year ahead of the election that said that the electors had to follow the popular vote. I believe that was Colorado and maybe Oregon did that this year.
That is a state by state prerogative, and it deals with what's called faithless electors.
There you go.
A lot of states have actual laws that will fine a faithless elector. What that means is that maybe one of these electors in Georgia is really mad about Trump not winning the election, and instead of casting the vote for Georgia like they're supposed to, they would cast the vote for President Trump. Now, they're within their right to do that. They can vote for whoever they want. However, they would be what's called a faithless elector, and they would be subject to fines and possible imprisonment should they do that. That would be against state law for them to do that. Every state does not have faithless elector policies. It's only states that have had volatile problems in the past. The Plain states, some of those farmer states, the Rust Belt, and the South. I don't want to get into the lengthy history of faithless electors because it happens a lot in the past, and that's one of the reasons we have these laws today. Now, on December 23rd, that's the deadline that the electoral votes must arrive in Washington. All right, and that's those 6 sets per state of certified electoral votes. All right, they have to be on the desk of the President of the Senate, who is the Vice President of the United States.
Are you quizzing me?
No, that was really just a pregnant pause.
Okay.
A pregnant pause for the right to lifers. January 3rd is when we swear in the new Congress. This will be I don't remember which one this is. Let me just look real quick. I believe this will be the 117th. That'll be the 117th Congress that will meet and be sworn in on January 3rd. And everyone who was up for re-election, everybody that participated in the election, they will be properly sworn in at that time. That's for Congress. That's for all houses of Congress, for the Senate and for the House of Representatives. On January 6th is the big day. That's when a joint session of Congress meets and they read off the votes in the Senate chamber. All right, the Vice President reads off those votes. There are 538 total.
On C-SPAN 8, the Ocho.
Yeah, this one I think will be prime time. I would assume that we're probably going to see a prime time news outlet reading of the electoral votes. There are 538 electoral votes. Okay, if anybody's wondering where they come up with the number of electoral votes, that's an interesting question. It's based on how many congressmen you have in your state, Congress people in your state, and your senator, and how many senators. So there's 100 senators, and there's
all based on the census that nobody fooled with this year.
That's absolutely right.
Sure.
There's 435 members of Congress or of the House of Representatives, and there's 3 for the District of Columbia. That's where you get the magic number, 538, and that's why you need 270 to win. And you guess what? If you don't respond to the census, you can't complain when you didn't pick up a congressman this year. It's very possible this year that if faithless electors prevail, that this is the only thing that the president is holding out for right now. The Democrats control the House of Representatives, right? Well, the Republicans actually control more state delegations. The Democrats control the actual House, but the Republicans control more electoral votes, believe it or not. So it's quite possible that the House could pick Donald Trump, even though there's a Democratic majority if it comes down to that. And the House has until noon on January 20th to pick the president, because January 20th is Inauguration Day. And somebody's getting inaugurated on January 20th regardless of all that. The House has until noon on January 20th.
Served. Someone will be sworn in.
That's correct. And if they haven't made a decision, the vice president would be named the president of the United States. So it would be President Mike Pence if there's some kind of challenge. That goes up to the 20th. I really, really don't think that's going to happen, but it's something I wanted to bring up for the sake of everybody, so you can understand that yes, we have elected a president-elect, but we don't have a president until January 20th. And between now and then, boy, there's a whole lot of things that can get set on fire. I'm here to tell you.
Okay, so what are you predicting?
I am predicting
certainly not a concession speech out of the White House anytime soon.
I believe this is going to be the first time in modern recording history that a president who has been defeated in an election will not give a concession speech, will not give any speech, other than to further denigrate the democratic process of this United States. They will further pander to their incredibly uneducated and ignorant base and say that there's still some way that they've won this election when they haven't. They've lost both the Electoral College and the popular vote. And there will be a lot of maneuvering between now and December 8th in the legal sector, lawsuits and whatnot filed. I guarantee you they're going to file a lawsuit in every swing state, but every single day between now and December 8th. If you just listened to...
And meanwhile, everybody needs to understand these secretaries of state are still processing ballots and working towards this certification process that Raines has been describing to you.
That's correct. All these states have to certify their electoral process.
Because ABC News says Joe Biden is the presumptive president-elect.
Now, the reason why a lot of people put stock in the major networks calling the election is because in the past there haven't been many problems with networks doing that. I don't foresee problems with it this year. I really feel like that we have an honest election, and it's gone off pretty much without a hitch. And we're going to have a certified electorate, and a lot of this stuff is really going to fall by the wayside, I would say, around the 1st of December. Let's get through Turkey Day and see what happens. By the way, if you want to save money on Christmas this year, bring up politics at the turkey table.
Hey, did you hear Biden's speech in Wilmington, Delaware tonight?
I did. I listened to he and Vice President-elect Harris's speech.
And so, just for the record books, this is the first female vice president that we've ever had in the history.
That is correct. Madam Vice President. It is absolutely a reality now.
And is she? What's her heritage?
Her mother is from India. Her father is from Jamaica.
Another one for the history books.
She is the first woman of color elected to serve in the White House. She is the first woman elected to serve in the White House.
So the thing that blew my skirt up,
glass ceiling.
Right, exactly. So the thing that blew my skirt up about the speech was the fact that President-elect Biden said that he was going to appoint a task force of scientists to give him some advice about what he should do about the coronavirus, which is the most refreshing thing I've heard all day.
That's going to come Monday, as Jimmy Buffett once said. Come Monday, it'll be all right. We are going to have a panel of scientists advising the president-elect on what needs to be done after he's sworn in as president.
Okay, so one more time, the CDC needs to be leading the charge on this, not being one component of the response. They need to do their separately from whatever is going to happen with Operation Warp Speed, negotiating contracts on PPE and all that other horse shit. They can handle that. Let the CDC do their thing, the thing they've been doing for 75 years.
I think you're going to see some positivity in that area because President Trump is now a lame duck president, which means they have lost the election and they only have, from this moment, 74 days between now and when a new president's inaugurated to do anything. And the political power, the amount of political clout that has been subtracted from the White House as of earlier today is astronomical. Whereas before, the president could just wave his hand and make things happen. That's all vanished. No lame duck president in the history of this country has ever been able to do much of anything in their lame duck period. Some presidents who have served 2 consecutive terms elected have had productive lame duck periods, but even then, it's more formality than anything else. It involves nonviolent pardons, some establishment of commissions in perpetuity, and things like that. There are not going to be any major executive orders issued. No, the president is not going to have the power to lock up people, build cages, all of this conspiracy stuff that's out there. The lame duck president simply does not have the clout to pull that kind of stuff off like a sitting president does. The power of President Donald Trump has been effectively removed, and he's just occupying the White House right now. His presidency is over.
So do you remember the little race we were talking about over in Georgia? David Perdue, the Republican incumbent,
And also,
the former CEO of the dollar store.
Mm-hmm.
And
David Perdue is going to lose his election in the runoff, and I do believe that Congressman Loeffler will lose her election in runoff, and we will see a Senate majority.
Well, this Perdue's the guy that I was talking about who allegedly, came home and told everybody, "Oh yeah, listen to President Trump, don't wear a mask." All the while, he's investing in PPE and
that's correct.
Any other biotech firm he can throw money at.
Speaking of PPE, I'd like to personally congratulate Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida, who so ridiculed mask wearing by wearing a large gas mask in the House of Representatives. He now has come down with the coronavirus.
Yeah, he, I can't remember who came after him so hard up here in the Panhandle, but man,
he has it. So does incidentally the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, the second most powerful man in the country.
Hey, Rain,
now has been diagnosed.
I wanted to bring this guy to your attention. This Shane Hazel guy, the Libertarian Party.
God, yes.
So I listened to. Their debate was on C-SPAN the other night, and I watched it, and he tore Perdue a new one.
Yeah,
he just was relentless. I felt bad for the guy, and he refused to do another debate because of that.
Yes, he did, and I can tell you something a little bit about Shane Hazel. Shane Hazel is a libertarian. As a former member of the Libertarian Party, as a former Libertarian delegate, I can tell you that Shane Hazel is a decent libertarian, but an excellent Republican. And Shane Hazel could not get the support of the Republican Party, and he ran, as most people do in that situation, ran as a libertarian. Watch for him to be a new emerging face in the Republican Party if he really chooses a political career that's going to be something more than symbolic. Look for him to switch up and grab hold of the donkey and move in that direction in the next 4 years. He's one to watch. He would make a great conservative.
And anything else that you took away from the speech that went over my head? How much time you got?
We finally have complete sentences. We finally have coherent thoughts. It's only been 4 years, but it seems like 40. We have someone who sounds presidential. We have someone that at least sounds like the kind of person who's going to put America first in a real way, not just for himself, but for all Americans. Am I 100% behind Joe Biden? No. I'm not 100% behind anybody. Is Joe Biden got a lot on his plate? Does he have a lot of things to fix? Absolutely. Do I believe that his administration is up to the task of unscrewing and literally pushing all this toothpaste back into the tube? I believe he's got a better shot at it than anybody else out there. I
All right.
really think that he's going to be the calming voice. He is going to do something that his old boss wasn't able to do. President Barack Obama, everybody thinks I'm the biggest Obama fan in the country. I'm a pretty big Obama fan, but I'm not that big of an Obama fan. President Barack Obama had a chance to truly unite this country, and he dropped the ball. He could have done it, but he didn't do it. He didn't do it the correct way. He didn't do it the right way, and he really dropped the ball on domestic policy. I believe Joe Biden's going to be able to do it because I don't think he's going to allow the level of just hateful rhetoric that we've been used to these last 4 years. I don't think Vice President Biden's going to allow that in Washington. That's not going to be the de rigueur anymore.
So let me just tell you what's going on Twitter right now. Marco Rubio came out and said suddenly people gathering in large crowds and not social distancing is no longer considered irresponsible by the media. That was shared by our current Alabama Lieutenant Governor, Will Ainsworth, who said, my thoughts exactly. Our former favorite candidate, Reigns, Dan Crenshaw, retweeted a Don Lemon tweet that says, I don't dare speak for my colleagues, but I can't tell you how difficult it's been as a journalist to cover this dark part of our history. And Dan Crenshaw responds, "Oh, you poor thing. Let me forward this tweet to some of my buddies overseas so they can send him some flowers."
Why don't you scroll a little further down and see
I
what,
saw what you said.
Russian LLC responded to that with?
Yeah, you can defend yourself on that one. I think Crenshaw's one of those guys who I don't feel like I have a whole lot of latitude with criticizing him and his perspectives.
Dan Crenshaw is a coward, and I'll stand on my parents' coffee table and yell that. Dan Crenshaw is a coward who would not stand up for democracy when democracy needed him. I guess it's fine for you to fall back on your military service and say, I defended my country once. I feel like I don't have to do it anymore. A coward who would not stand up for democracy, who would not stand up for the democratic process, who would not stand up against deliberate disinformation coming out of the White House. He simply wouldn't do it. Now, to get back in the good graces of the church, as it were, Dan Crenshaw is going to have to take his armored Humvee back to the middle of the road. But believe you me, there's a lot of people like me here in Texas who are going to remember when he just kind of coasted down the shoulder on the far right. And he doesn't have a rabbi anymore. He doesn't have a Trump to get up underneath to rally his base anymore. That's over with. He's going to have to actually be a congressman. And I hate to break this to you, I don't think he's up to the task.
He's recruiting.
Yes, he is.
So
goes to John McCain. There he is.
Yeah, the comeuppance. The fact that he lost that state just tickles me to death.
Yep, you can't knock around. You can't. If you are a politician and you stand up in front of the Alabama State House and you take a shit on a picture of Bear Bryant, I don't think that Alabama's going to carry you. And I kind of feel like that's how the people of Arizona kind of saw how he treated their native son. And I think it speaks volumes.
And telling everybody not to buy Goodyear tires.
Another brilliant political decision.
Okay, so let's talk international trade. A lot of people in my camp have been supportive of some of the things that the president has done. Of course, I would say I'm of the opinion that certain tariffs like that on steel and other things, you're doing nothing but passing those costs on to the end consumer here in the United States.
Agreed.
We're still going to consume the same amount of steel regardless of where it's made. You agree with that? You think anybody's quit buying
Absolutely.
steel?
Yeah,
Because we have more
that's
expensive? Of course not.
nobody's sandbagging steel and haven't been.
But there's got to be some solution to us sending all of our skilled labor jobs over. There's a reason that all the iPhones are made in China. Because
Absolutely,
if
because
we
it
made
doesn't
them
cost
in,
anything to make them in China.
right, if we made them in Chicago, they'd cost $5,000 for an iPhone. Do you
I
agree?
think you're using a poor example. We should use widgets, go back to Economics 101 and use
All right.
widgets.
So
Because I do believe that there are morons out there that would pay
frozen
$5,000 for
concentrated
the
orange juice. Frozen concentrated orange juice. Regardless of where it's a fungible asset or wheat or whatever. If you put a tariff on it, we're gonna unless it's some product that we export more than we consume, like say soybeans or frozen chicken. Do you know how many frozen chickens leave Alabama and go all around the world? Or used to?
Actually, they leave the port of Gulfport, Mississippi, the #1 frozen chicken exporter on the planet.
So what's going to happen with international trade? Are we going to normalize things with NATO countries and have a big a big prayer meet at the White House again with all of our NATO and Middle Eastern allies and let everybody know we
No.
still have their back? No, nothing like
But
that.
as far as international trade goes, no. Nothing much is going to change on the international trade front. Because believe it or not, if you go back and look at the last 4 years, not a whole lot changed on the international trade front under President Trump. There was a lot of saber rattling and a lot of, well, we're going to put tariffs on China and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. The only thing that changed majorly in the United States when it comes to international trade was when we withdrew from the Paris Climate Accords. And the president rolled back environmental regulations on U.S. manufacturing and heavy industry. When we rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, which there is no doubt in my mind we will do January 21, that is going to put some strain on American manufacturing and American industry. They're going to have to readjust to the environmental laws that should never have been taken away in the first place. And of course, they're going to blame that on the president and his administration. But it's something that needed to be done.
Okay, so when Obama was in office, they classified coal ash as a hazardous waste. Mm-hmm. That's why Alabama Power Company has been rushing to get their permit in before January because
so they can get grandfathered in, right?
Exactly. Anyway, I'm sure that there will be some regulations that we will see again.
The regulations are going to return, and with that return will be a return to some standard of normalcy for international trade. International trade, despite what we like to think, is not controlled by the United States. It is controlled by international trade.
International banks.
Yeah, the oligarchs of the world control international trade, not the White House. And yes, did we make inroads to close our trade deficit with China? Absolutely. Will American manufacturers find some other place to go besides China to create their goods? You better believe they will. That's what they've been doing for the last 2 years. Because it is too expensive to produce goods here in America and keep prices at a pace that the American public can afford. That's simple economics.
Okay, so I got a round of questions for you. Did I read the other day that Bannon was under investigation? Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon has made a pretty alarming statement on Twitter that Dr. Fauci and other people who have hamstrung the U.S. economy need to be beheaded and their heads placed on pikes around the White House. He said that publicly.
That sounds off his rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and his attorney, who's representing him in federal court and his ongoing court cases in federal court, have quit. His entire legal team has quit. They said, we're not going to represent someone. They didn't say that to the judge, but they did, as you're, I'm sure, are aware. You stand in front of the judge and you say, I am no longer representing this person, and you walk out. And that's what they did. He had his Twitter account suspended forever. He's never allowed back on social media. And yeah, he's unhinged, more so unhinged than he was when he was the #1 advisor to the current president of the United States. Let that sink in real good.
And he's a former naval officer. Is that right?
Steve Bannon was in the Navy, yes.
Right. Okay, so how about the Omen, Kushner? You think anything sticks to him when they leave office?
There will be some Trump stink for Jared Kushner, but let me ask you something. Before President Trump was elected, had you ever heard the name Jared Kushner?
Yeah, because I knew that's why. Damn it, New Jersey Governor
Chris Christie.
Chris Christie was excluded from the party because when he was the Attorney General for New Jersey, he prosecuted Kushner's father
Correct.
in some weird thing where it was some kind of blackmail scheme, and it should have just been like a misdemeanor or whatever, but it was pretty egregious because it was witness tampering, and he put him in jail for like, I don't know. They maxed him out a long time. He may still be in jail. He and Kushner weren't pen pals.
And I can understand that, and I'll make 2 points on that. One, I'm so glad that you represent me in my Alabama interest, because I'm so happy that my defense attorney refers to any sort of kidnapping crime as some form of misdemeanor. That's going to be great in front of Stankowski if I ever get in front of him, to have you at my table.
You better not come to Baldwin County.
Secondly, my point is that Jared Kushner was relatively unknown outside of the Beltway before the president came into power. I don't believe that Jared Kushner, I don't believe this will be the last we hear of Jared Kushner, but he will definitely be playing his cards under the radar for the significant future.
All right, so the possibility of pardons all around for the Trump guys.
I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's happening. I don't believe.
I think he's made too many enemies in the Justice Department.
I believe that there are so many crimes that have come to light that the only reason that the president was not prosecuted for them is because they are the president. Some of them are so egregious morally.
So if it turns out he really does have a Chinese bank account or some of this foolishness,
I could care less that he has a Chinese bank account. He's not the president anymore after January 20th. I could care less about that. What I can care about is that he was at the head of a charity that defrauded people. He was at the head of a university that defrauded people. He was at the head of an international scheme to hold aid from the Ukraine, for which he was impeached. There are crimes within all of those proceedings and all the things that I've described that will be prosecuted in the Southern District of New York. And I guarantee you the knives are being sharpened as we speak. There will not be a blanket pardon for the president and his staff. Absolutely not. I believe that President-elect Biden knows what kind of damage that would do to the reputation of the Justice Department. And I just don't think that President Biden's morality will allow him to give a pass to some things so egregious as stealing from a veteran's charity and from a child's cancer charity. I just don't think that the Trump family will walk away from this with presidential pardons.
Did you see how much money Cohen had been given by like AT&T for
access to
I can't even remember how they described it. Consultation with him as to, there was something going on. There was some big acquisition that they were trying to make happen, and
that's the pay to play. And everyone says, "Oh well, the president." You said it yourself. Well, the president hadn't had any lobbyists in his office. That's because the president doesn't get lobbyists close to him. It's illegal for lobbyists to talk to the president. What they do is get presidential access through intermediaries, and that's what Michael Cohen's role was.
And when something like this is exposed, the people who paid the money, they should all be held to account for that.
There's no law against lobbying in the United States. No law against it.
That when you're serving in an official capacity, receiving a salary, you should not take money from other sources. Do you agree with that? When you're being paid to be chief of staff, you shouldn't take money from anybody.
There are laws about that. Those are bribery laws.
I'm certain of it.
But Michael Cohen was not in the employ of the U.S. government when he did those things.
He was the president's personal fixer.
He was an attorney for the president.
Okay, so like the money that he got from AT&T, he used to pay off Stormy Daniels, which is where all these subpoenas are come into play, and why I believe that on his way out he will get a pardon from President Biden. I
do not believe so, because I believe in the work that the great Robert Mueller did, and the outline that he gave to Congress was that the only reason I can't prosecute this from the Justice Department is because we cannot indict a sitting president. The things that are going to be unsealed once Donald Trump is no longer president are going to, I hate to sound like I should have some sort of letter in front of my name with the word anon, but it's going to be pretty monumentous.
Really?
Oh, yes. The Russia collusion, the money, the Deutsche Bank laundering, all of that. Once he's no longer president, protected by the office of the president, all that's going to come out.
And who leads that investigation?
The Southern District of New York.
Interesting.
SDNY, baby. They are sharpening knives as we speak.
Okay, so do you think there are tapes, like the Nixon tapes? Surely everything that comes in and out of the White House is recorded.
If you didn't learn the lesson from Richard Nixon about you don't talk about certain things when you know that certain things are being recorded, then Jesus Christ and the Hail Mary, you deserve everything you got coming to you.
Some people never learn.
Well, I mean, we can only hope that
are always writing their next memoir.
The next episode of Celebrity Apprentice will tell us the tale.
No kidding. So anything else going on right now? Anything that's broken since we've been on? Been going for about 30 minutes.
I don't think anything's really broken since then. A couple of predictions that you'll see in the next 24 hours is a massive departure of non-named staff from the White House. West Wing employees are going to be dropping by the dozens. There's about 1,800 employees in the West Wing. I would say more than 50% of them will be resigning in the next 24 to 48 hours. You are going to see what's called in some circles conspicuous silence from a lot of big mouths in Washington. Attorney General Bill Barr, for example, he is going to have to crawl out from under a rock to submit his resignation letter. When the new cabinet is named, he has gone into hiding, and you will hear nothing from him, because that man, if anybody is just lighting candles and praying rosaries for a presidential pardon right now, it's the sitting Attorney General of the United States.
Yeah, I can't for the life of me think why he tried to intervene in that Stormy Daniels case. Or not, it wasn't Stormy Daniels case. I'm sorry. It was the defamation case. So Biden, per the Washington Post, Biden plans immediate flurry of executive orders to reverse Trump policies. Do you know we have another hurricane or tropical system? Ada is supposed to be right off the coast of Tampa, heading our way middle of the week. And then
gonna come right up and smack Baldwin County right in the mouth, it might.
And then Georgia got their ass stomped by Florida this evening, 44-28. It was.
Yeah, you know what's a big game when Bill Burr tweets about an SEC contest.
Whew. I couldn't believe that.
That's something to see. Something to watch out for is there are going to be immediate posturings for the presidential nominees for 2024. That campaign starts now for the nominating process for who's going to be the Republican nominee for president in 2024. If you really want to pay close attention and watch where it's going, pay attention to everything Hope Hicks does between now and Valentine's Day, and you will get a great prelude for what's going to happen in 2022 when the midterms come around. Also, I don't believe there's going to be a flurry of executive orders. President-elect Biden is not going to be able to immediately reverse President Trump's tax cuts for the rich, because he still is going to possibly face a Republican-controlled Senate in the first weeks of his presidency, and the House Democratic Party is not exactly on solid ground. There is still the thought of a stimulus package for the United States and for economic stimulus for the entire country and for the economy. He's not going to be able to just pull out a sword and cut the head off a tax break in the middle of that. He simply does not have the political clout to do that yet. I've heard some mention that he's going to write off the first $50,000 of all student debt. I don't see that happening. That's really being promulgated as something he's going to do in his first few weeks. I don't think people with any kind of economic understanding of how the stock market works knows what that would do to the major lending institutions of this country. You think the housing crisis was bad. It snuck up on us. But imagine an overnight drop of tranched U.S. debt where the student loan market would suddenly have the bottom fall out of it. By Fannie Mae, by Freddie Mac, we'd have to nationalize student loans. That would destroy Wall Street. That's not going to happen.
There's all kinds of pie in the sky stuff, and we're gonna go from who's the Trumpiest to who's the most woke in the next election. It's gonna be more spectacle. You know, it'll keep the podcast going, man. It'll keep things interesting.
That's true. The only thing I have plans to do is start a GoFundMe I want a bronze plaque put up on the 5 miles of border wall that President Trump had erected in South Texas.
Hey, have you ever?
I wanted to have the quote from the great poem Ozymandias. Here lies Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair.
Trump socks. Did I send you a pair of these?
No, Harry. It's probably in a package with the 84 other things you said you'd send me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wear them anyway. I'd make sock puppets out of them.
Well, they're collector's items, man. They even came with a pen and a hairbrush.
Oh, well, that's just precious.
We're gonna hold on to them. You never know, especially if he goes to jail. Be worth a lot of money.
Now there's so much Trump crap out there, and I just reiterate what I said before about the biggest take I've had from all this is that when I see the Confederate flag and I see the Trump flag on the back of a pickup truck, they both remind me of two things that only lasted 4 years and ended in an absolutely devastating loss. So,
well, that's going to be the last word. I'll see you Friday. Hopefully, nothing eventful will happen between now and then. Agreed?
I hope something explodes.
I hope not. Later, man.
Later on.